Hey everyone! So today we're going to be talking about, I've been receiving this question so many times, how do I create a hoodie or a kind of hat on a character in Marvelous Designer? And how do I properly scale and import my models into Marvelous Designer if they are not perfectly centered, meaning that the silhouette on the 2D view is not perfect to the standard of the actual element. Now I have both Marvelous Designer and 3ds Max opened. Uh, to be able to configure the character to be perfectly centered in the middle in Marvelous Designer, you need to open a 3D software, meaning either 3ds Max, Maya, Blender, Cinema 4D, anything that can allow you to manipulate the pivot point of the character. So the pivot point is the axis of rotation, basically, the center of gravity of the character, and you need to be able to configure it and move it accordingly. So let's start here. First off, I'm gonna import a character. So I have the female base mesh that I've used for the two other videos. So typically when I import, I make sure it loads as an avatar, that's number one. I auto scale it, that's number two. And that's about it. So at first sight, the character looks at the right dimensions, but the center line right here is not perfectly centered on the character. And that's a problem. If you're going to try to simulate this in Marvelous Designer, you might get a few problems, even though you can eyeball a little bit more of the pattern, but we don't want this to happen. So what we're going to do here is try to fix this character up perfectly. That way we get a better result for Marvelous Designer. So let me just clear this completely. There we go. And we jump into 3ds Max. It's my 3D software of choice here. So first thing, file, import the character. So desktop, and it was the female base mesh. And say import. There we go. Number one problem. It is very small compared to this entire size of the grid. So I need to refix this. Even though in Marvelous Designer I am auto-scaling, meaning it's scaling appropriately to the viewport, which is what you see, but in softwares like ZBrush you will have a problem. So let's say for an example, I have a hoodie on or a robe on the character in Marvelous Designer. Yes, it is scaled properly to that model size, meaning that the actual garment will be modeled and scaled to that 1.75 meter long character. But when I take this garment into ZBrush and then I import the character separately, my character will be a 2 centimeter figure wearing a 1.75 meter scaled robe. So that's a problem we have to face. So a few things we're going to do here. Step one, scale the character appropriately with the units of centimeters in the 3D software. Step number two, align the center of gravity perfectly to the center and on the feet, and then we can commence the actual work in ZBrush and in Marvelous Designer. So let's start here. First step, if you're using a 3D software that is different than 3ds Max, you have to go into the unit setup. So for 3ds Max, it's inside of Customize, Unit Setup right here. So two things we're going to see. One, we want the grid to be, the display unit scale to be in centimeters. That's number one. Two, I have to click on my system unit setup and make sure that the grid, so every single square here has to be a certain dimension. So if I do this right now, each square is 10 centimeters. So my character, technically, if I take a box right now and I scale this up to the character appropriately, like so, my character's height is 7.5 centimeters right here on the right. That's very bad. So what I need it to be is 100 and let's say 70, average woman side, 170 height. So this is where my character has to end up. So what I'm going to do before I start scaling is align the pivot point right here to the character. So for 3ds Max users, this is how you do it. You go into your right side hierarchy right here. You say affect pivot point only, center to object. So now my pivot point is perfectly centered. All right. And I'm gonna affect pivot point, sorry, keep it on. Right click on the Z axis on the bottom. Okay, this will allow the pivot point to go all the way straight to the bottom. Remove the affect pivot point only, and I'm gonna realign by right clicking on these X, Y, and the Z to have the character perfectly centered in the middle. And now I'm gonna scale it up uniformly all the way to the 1.70 mark on my box. And now I have a perfectly scaled character for any software that you're going to be using. Let me just make sure that the feet are perfectly aligned. They're okay, but I do want to drop them down just a tiny bit right here. There we go. Again, affect pivot point, and I'm just going to reset this to 0. And that's it. Now my foot is perfectly placed on the floor, and that's about it. So let's delete this box. It was just as a reference, and now I have a perfect character. Let's go File, export this, export, and I'm going to export it as an OBJ. So let's call this female adjusted, and let's just go into OBJ right here and save. And I get all of these stuff, just ignore them for now, they're not very important for what we're trying to do, and export. And done. Now let's go back to Marvelous. So this is completely done right here. So file, import, obj, and I can go female adjusted, open this, and instead of now you can keep it at auto scale, but instead I can just go into centimeters right now if I want to, and I'll have the character correct. Perfect. So now everything is correctly done. So next step, and if you notice, the line is perfectly centered now on the character, and the feet are perfectly aligned on the bottom. So amazing. Now let's jump into how do I create a hood or a hoodie for a character. So a hood, in a sense, I'm trying to think about a robe with like a hood, like an assassin or maybe a wizard. So let's go through that. The first step I usually do is I typically start using a t-shirt to give me a small reference. So in my other previous videos we started doing a t-shirts many times, so I'm just going to create one very quickly. In the middle, there we go. Select the edge, unfold, select the entire component, Control C, right click, and symmetric paste. Perfect. Make sure that this is rotated correctly. Just gonna move it behind. There we go. The first thing I'm gonna sew together is the shoulders, and then I'm gonna sew the rest together. So shoulders first, outside, then inside. So this is the sewing done. I'm gonna just simulate it very quickly. Stop. That's enough. Now I'm gonna grab the shoulders, so inside as well, outside, small little pieces here, outside, inside, and simulate this. It's a little bit tight here, so let's just drag this down a bit to help it out. Okay, great. What I like to do here is just transform this into a curve. Just to be able to get that little bump that happens on the shoulders out, and now I have a better result. One thing I would like to do as well is moving these points a little bit further close to the shoulder. I need a bit more space, and this is going to be very effective for the actual hood that we're going to be doing. So this is a bit too long. So I would like to control a curve. To control a curve, you have to use this, edit curvature. So I'm just going to drag it in just a little bit here. There we go. Same on the other side. And I'm going to make sure that this point is not that far out. So I'm going to put it in and pull it in. There we go. Much better. Let me make sure that this is properly simulated. Great. I think I missed a sew here. There we go. Okay, now for the hood. So you have to think about a few things. One, how is a hood created? So if you think about how an actual factory that creates textile and clothing, how do they create the patterns and the blocks? That's the point. Every time you're trying to create something in Marvelous, you have to think about how is it done in the real world, because this entire 2D view is basically the same thing as patterns that they used in the real world. So here I'm going to have a few problems. I cannot create a hood with only these two segments or these four segments here. So what we're going to do here is try to transform a bit of the geometry to be able to allocate this hood that we're going to be creating. Okay, so number one, I'm going to create the pattern of the hood. I need a block in the middle, so like so, and I need a block on the left and on the right. So this is going to be a little bit complex, but just follow along with me. So what we're going to do is create a curve, like so, and come back right here. So number one, I'm gonna click on this little one, convert to a curve point, and here I need to convert this as well into a curve point, but I need one more point here, so split and move this upwards, just like right about here. And this curve, I'm gonna select it and curve it in. There we go. So let me show you how this is gonna work. This is gonna go on the left side of the character, around here on the head. The size doesn't really matter, you're gonna fix that all up later on. Okay, so don't worry about that. Good. This is gonna go in the center. So this will envelop sorry, this will envelop this edge, for an example, right here, will envelop this entire geometry. So it needs to be a little bit longer here. There we go. And we're just gonna rotate this. And move it into place. Great. And finally, we're gonna just take this little edge, Control C, and we're gonna mirror paste it to the other side. Perfect. Now, the small problem that arises. In the front, we're perfectly fine. Why? Because this edge will connect with this one, and then the other half will connect with the other half on the back. Okay, that's number one. Same thing goes for the other side. But on the back, you have this edge that has to connect somewhere here. So what we're gonna do is select this, delete the point, grab this edge, split. We're gonna go into a uniform split, and we're gonna add two of these. So 3 points in total. And say OK. And we're gonna drop these all the way down, like so. There we go. And now we have a connection for this edge right here, this one, and the other one. But we also have to do one thing here, is take this edge, right click, split, uniform split into two, so that creates one. And the same goes here, split, uniform split as well. So you don't get confused, always use the 3D view to help you out. So click, shift click, I want it to go here. So that's where my point is going to be. So this edge has to get sewn right here. Good. Next, this, shift click on the back, this side. There we go. Next, this one, shift click on the front, so I know which one it is. Here to here. Click, shift click on the back. It's going to go there. Perfect. And now we're going to take this to here. So this is the edge all the way to here. Control B if you get an X pattern going on here. You need to have it straight. There we go. So this edge, this geometry has to go a little bit closer. Good. And now this edge to here. Control B. That's what we're talking about. And then here to here. There we go. And we're going to try to simulate this and see how it goes. Stop. Perfect. We are at a very good point right here. Now, I need to do a few things. This is going to slide down. Why is it going to slide down? Because these geometry, these dimensions are not correct. Meaning it's a bit too small somewhere, it's a bit too large somewhere. It's not going to create a proper simulation. I need to tack, meaning I need to be able to take this geometry and stick it on the character, that way it doesn't move until the entire simulation is done. How do we do this? I covered this last time in my videos. We're going to use these points. So again, this is to edit the tack. This is a tack on a geometry, meaning that you take a pattern and you tack it to another pattern. That's not what we want. We want this one. Tack on avatar, meaning I will take this geometry, which is this point right here, right in the middle, and I want to tack it all the way to the front forehead of the character. Okay, so when I simulate again, this will stay right here, allowing me to get enough time to adjust the entire size. Look at how stretched it is. That's very bad. So this will give me enough time to adjust everything. So if I click here, whoops, sorry, I don't want the tack, I want this. If I click here, all right, this is the edge. Perfect. I'm gonna elongate this quite a bit, giving a bit more, see, wiggle room. Great. These are way too short. So we're gonna adjust these. One, I'm gonna grab the curvature and move these forward. There we go. And there we go. Try to keep everything uniform. This is still too small as well. I need a bit more geometry here. So we're gonna extend this far ahead. This far ahead. There we go. A little bit more geometry is working out perfectly here. And as well, let me just move this edge up, this pattern up, and here, all the way forward, and here, all the way forward. Create the curve again, and move it out, and move it out. You don't have to be so precise, just be very rash with your movements. See? Perfect. Now, a lot of geometry here, so we have to adjust that. Let me just take it a little bit forwards, a bit backwards, just move it around. And I'm going to increase the size of this geometry. So I want to increase the size uniformly, so I'm just going to click on this one and just increase the size uniformly here. There we go. It shifted slightly to the side, so let's just readjust this. There we go. Now, we do have a lot of geometry, it is true, it's very foldy and stuff, but we're gonna fix this very soon, just to be able to adjust it a bit more on the character. So, number one, I would like to add a little bit more pressure on these three actually components, so let me just increase the pressure. There we go. And now I can decrease the size of all of these three together, just to see how it fits. A bit better. Now, the point of all of this is that I need to remove the tack at some point, and I want to see if it's going to stick. The problem is that it's going to probably fall down. I don't want that to happen. So hopefully it won't. Let's just make sure that this is pretty tight right here. Alright, let's see if we can remove the tack. Click it and delete. Ah, not bad, it actually stayed. I think there's still one more somewhere here. So with the pressure, this is causing it to actually go up. So let me just reduce back this, just the top to 0. Hopefully it will just fall back down. There we go. Maybe 6 was a bit too harsh on these guys too. Maybe a 3. There we go. So you can fix it up any way you want, any shape you want, no problem. It's all about what you want to do here. What you can do as well is cut this in half and create kind of a robe effect, kind of going down. You can elongate this and create an entire actual geometry mesh. But this is how you create a hood to start. If you want more geometry in the front, you can just remove these little points. So right here, I can just move this forwards and move this forwards, and you get a bit of a better geometry in the front. It's sticking to the character a little bit. Let me just, whoop, there we go. And this is how you create a hood. Now, of course, here you can reduce a little bit of that bump on the back, just to reduce the strain on the back of the character right here. And as well, you can actually increase the size of these edges a little bit more to give it a bit more freedom. There we go, see? A bit more bubble effect happening. So it is definitely up to your decision of how you want to take this character forward. Now I can definitely take this edge all the way to the front, giving it a bit of a tighter area around the neck, which is fine. I can also cut the shirt in half, like I said before, and create an entire robe effect, an entire thing happening for the character. Okay, so hopefully this helped to just address how to create a hood for a character. Just make sure you use the tags, they help a crap ton here, you really need that. And this will give you what you're looking for. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you have any suggestions or anything you might need for me to explain. I'll be more than happy to do that. Have a great day, guys. See you. Bye.